Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. Today we're gonna be doing another Godzilla X Kong video. Yeah, I know. I never upload, but the one time I do, it's another GXK video and not the football content I'm known for. But I can assure you, I've got something good coming soon, so stay tuned to that and subscribe so you don't have to miss out on it because you won't want to miss it anyways. Today, I'm joined by my friend, and let's just call his friend Xavier. So say hi, Xavier.
Uh, thanks, FC. Hi guys. I'm gonna be joining them today in this discussion. Speaking of which, what are we discussing?
Yes, today we're gonna be discussing something that's been on my mind for a while now. It's a debate over two very similar movies: Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, which we saw with each other, versus Deadpool Wolverine, which we saw separately.
Ooh, okay, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, the GXK fan kids keep complaining people are comparing it to Godzilla -1 because they're different types of movies, which sure that's valid, but they're also mad when you compare it to Godzilla 2014, even though it take place in the same universe, believe it or not. Their excuse for that is, but the show era did it. Completely disregarding the show era died out because it was getting too ridiculous and oversaturated. Same will happen to the monsterverse if they don't go back to the mysterious tone they started with. Now, I'm going to try again, maybe for the last time, to get it through their heads that it's hot garbage. By comparing it to a movie that came out the same year, equal competition at the box office, has two of the most popular pop culture figures in history teaming up against two world-ending threats.
Yeah.
And lots of action in what you consider a popcorn flick, as the GXK stands will call it. Oh, and by the way, if you like GXK, I have no problems with you. We have no problems with you or anyone, as long as you can accept it's a bad movie. Like, I've seen plenty of movies I like. I accept they're complete hot garbage, but I love them. This isn't one of them. And you realize we deserve better in the future. And at the moment, the Monsterverse doesn't currently have any direction. And you're not calling everyone who actually wants better content dumb for being in the minority. Then I don't have any issues with you. Enjoy the movie, but realize what it is at the same time. So now with that out of the way, let's start a comparison. So, as you know, every hero is only as good as his or her or they villain. Alright? So, when you're looking at a movie like this, you're expecting a at least semi-decent villain. Alright. So, the villains, there's a similar thing, about this, right, Xavier?
Yeah.
The movies both have two villains.
Yeah.
Let's start with, GXK, right? So, GXK has the Scar King and Shimu. Alright?
Yeah.
Let's talk about their motivation, shall we? Tell me what was Scar King's motivation. Scar King's motivation. You want to know his motivation?
What?
Get to the surface and destroy the world. World domination, the typical world domination.
Damn right.
Standard villain motivation, but the GXK fans say he's the greatest villain of all time. Like, according to them, he's up there with the Joker from The Dark Knight.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Is that what they're saying?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
And with Shimu, her motivation.
Shiba.
Sounds like that's Shiba. Basically what she is.
Wow.
A dog. Well, her motivation is she doesn't have one. She's just under his rule. Like she's his slave.
Wow.
Before we get to the other two villains' motivations, let's talk about what's wrong with these motivations.
And what is that?
First off, it's completely generic. Like, can you count how many movies you've seen that have the generic world domination plot?
Probably about a couple thousand.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, and the thing is, in the Monsterverse previously, in Godzilla 2014, the Mutos, they were just animals. You know, they wanted to reproduce like basically all of us do. Yeah, basically, and um, that's what they wanted. But the thing is, obviously, for us, that would be bad having a bunch of giant monsters flying all over the world. It'd basically be the end of humanity.
Yeah. Good way to put it.
So that's a good motivation. They're just animals, but really oversized animals that just want to reproduce, like basically all of us. How do you make a monster that relatable?
Just like us.
Kong Skull Island. The skull crawler. All right. Wanted to eliminate its natural competition, so it has all the food and resources to itself, which is understandable. You know, who doesn't want extra food and all that stuff, and zero competition to go against? I mean, it's not good for the environment or these movies, obviously, but of course for the skull crawler, it's good for them. Same thing, just animals, you know, which that can work. And King of the Monsters took a different turn from animals to gods. Ghidorah's motivation was pretty generic, though. Was basically to take over the world. I'll admit that. That's where the change started. The villains from GVK were, well, people who wanted to build machines to be able to fight off the monsters just in case they invade and everything, although they had the wrong intentions of it. That you could see.
Thank you.
Xavier, man. They could see where, you get the point, right?
Yeah.
Well, towards the end, we all know he got taken over by Ghidorah.
Yeah.
But but before that, you know, the villains that were driving the movie. Yeah. So, now the villains from GXK, Scar King and Shimu, wants to invade. One wants to invade the planet that had have world domination, while the other is being forced into it. Which that could be done properly, but of course it wasn't, because and the thing is, those two movies were made by the same director. And the thing is, the difference is, I actually like GVK.
Yeah.
Tell me how that is. Why though? Like, how do the villains just get less development like that? Like, it's like throughout every MonsterVerse movie, the villains get worse and worse and worse. It needs to stop, okay? We need to be asking for better content instead of being content with this monstrosity.
Exactly.
Now the villains from Deadpool and Wolverine, there were Cassandra, Nova, and Paradox. Now Paradox, I'd say, had the best one in between. These are a controversial opinion, but okay. You know, he works for the TVA, and he's just tired of how the TVA are now being run. You know, he doesn't really agree with it. And he doesn't want to watch a universe that doesn't have its anchor being just die out slowly after thousands of years. He wants to just get it over with, but he wants to pull Deadpool out of that universe, as he sees him as pretty important and vital to whatever the MCU wants next, which is kind of like a commentary on what's happening outside the studios. But yeah, so that's his motivation for it, wrapping around the entire universe way. But for him, it's just a standard job. And for Cassandra Nova, she was banished for being too powerful, and basically wants to come back and completely destroy the multiverse, which is where the TVA operate. That's their whole mission, and well, that's kind of understandable, you know, where that's coming from. You know, like villains, like, you understand their motives, you know where they're going, you get why, but at the same time, you're like, that's a little extreme, which is understandable. But with just these standard villains that just want to dominate the world for basically little to no reasoning, it's oversaturated, like, completely. Like,
I know, like, it's just sometimes, like, you just gotta chill out a bit.
I don't get it. Those are the two main villains, and you can see where I'm going with this. Like, your villains have to be good for your story. These villains in GXK were just generic. Shimu could have been done better, but I like how they were going with it, but it's just they did not execute it right whatsoever. Now, let's talk about the heroes of the movie. Let's start with GXK. So you have Godzilla.
Yeah, and Kong.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, let's talk about Godzilla screen time real quick. Pull that up for me.
Yeah, let's see it. In GSK, read that for him.
Godzilla's limited screen time in Godzilla x Kong marks a monsterverse record with only 8 minutes shown in the film.
8 minutes? Are you kidding?
Now pull up that tab right there. So as you all know, Godzilla 2014 was heavily criticized for not having enough Godzilla. Okay, so what is this? Explain this to me, Xavier.
So in Godzilla x Kong, it was 8 minutes, but his screen time in 2014, which is heavily criticized for him getting not enough screen time, 10 minutes of Godzilla.
2 minute difference, which you might see, it isn't that big of a deal. But so why in the world were people complaining so bad about him not being in the movie here, but he has 2 minutes less screen time, and everybody says it's the greatest movie of all time? It makes no sense to me. The hypocrisy in this community is insane.
It really is insane, and they just really need to get themselves in check.
Like, I don't know what to say about it, because like the hypocrisy is insane. They'll say one thing but contradict it the next just to prove a point, and I don't get it. Like, what? This is a confusing fan base to say the least.
Man,
the Deadpool Wolverine screen time. Now, Deadpool's in basically almost every scene in the movie, and for every scene he's not in, Wolverine's in it, which, you know, doesn't get oversaturated and old because the characters know how to flesh out a story, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm wondering, why couldn't GXK do the same? Like, it was going somewhere with it, just threw it all away just for. We'll get to that later. Now let's talk about Deadpool Wolverine. Their screen time. Well, I'll say basically the whole movie. For every minute Deadpool wasn't on screen, Wolverine was there to make up for it, and then the rest of it was just them all together. So. It never gets oversaturated at all, and that's the thing. And it's not like you just have Deadpool 1 minute and then like for basically the whole movie, then take a 5-minute break and then a 2-minute break, probably a 1-minute break. I don't know, with Wolverine fighting some random or charging up his powers to go have a big fight at the end he doesn't even know about. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
It really doesn't.
Like, that's what happened in GXK. Like, could you count how many times the movie cut away from his plot just to show Godzilla charging up?
Many times.
Like, they just kept showing, and then the lady's like, he's clearly charging up for something. Like,
what an idiot.
Like, no kidding, he's charging up for something. But he doesn't even know what he's charging up for, so,
exactly.
I mean, that lets you know how they think about their audience, which, I mean, can you blame them?
Yeah. Also, one thing, FC, I can tell that you've invested in a better mic. I'll say that.
Yeah, had that old mic since like 2010. I replied to a comment about that, but let's not get off track. Yeah, I finally upgraded. So now we're gonna talk about characters' motives. So Deadpool's motive wants to save his universe from dying, since his anchor being Wolverine died in that universe somewhere in the near future in 2029. So he wants to avoid his universe being destroyed over time by grabbing Wolverine from another universe, inherently replacing the anchor being even before he like a few years before he dies, and save his universe. All right, that's a pretty understandable plot. Like, if your universe was dying and that was a way to, like,
yeah, it makes sense.
All right, Wolverine's motivation in his universe, he never joined the X-Men. He was only there every now and then, kept himself shut off from them. Then they all died from a bunch of mutant hunters. So after they die, he just goes into some sort of depressive state until Deadpool comes along, telling him, "Oh, you need to go to help me out and saving my world." And we see what happens there. And originally, after, they meet Blade, Gambit, all those characters, and they're coming up with the plan to go after Cassandra Nova, he originally just wants to stay out of it. He's like, "Nah, I'm good," until X-23 comes up, which she has a history with him in her universe, at least. And so she convinces him to help them out over time, because she's kind of like what the old X-Men him were now, kind of need him in the moment, and now it's his chance to kind of redeem himself. Okay, good motivations, right? Good motivations,
yeah.
Right? Okay, Kong's motivation. He has an infected tooth.
get a load of this.
Okay, but seriously, that's basically his like motivation for the first 30 minutes of the movie. But that's kind of what leads this up to it. But anyways, besides that, he has no motivation until he goes down into the hollow earth and finds his species. That's when he has that's when his true motivation starts, like towards the end of the movie, which makes no sense. That's not a good character building, especially if you want him to be your main character. And what about Godzilla? What was his motivation?
Nothing.
Honestly, like, just out of nowhere, he just charges up for something that, and then he doesn't even know what it is, because once Kong wants to take him back to Hollow Earth to go take him down, he's unaware of it. Because he doesn't go down to Hollow Earth. He just goes there just because Kong did an alpha call or something halfway across the world, but okay. Then he goes down there once Mothra breaks her down to him. Yeah, it's just... you can see where this is going. Kong barely has a motivation till once the movie's almost done. Godzilla doesn't have a motivation till the movie has about like 10 minutes left. It's just a stand-in motivation for charging up. Like, originally he was charging up to fight Timiot, which I would say, okay, cool, if the fight wasn't 30 seconds long and you couldn't see anything. Not because it was too dark, but because it was too bright. But then he charges up again, taking her energy, which still begs the question, what the world did he need to charge up for if by the end of the movie you found out he doesn't even know what he's charging up for? Which, you can see the gap between the two movies and their top characters. Like, Deadpool Wolverine, they actually have different motivations, and good motivations at that. Like, good motivation for why they want to do what they do. One wants to redeem himself for the wrongs he's did in the past, and the other wants to save his universe from dying, and his friends. Those are pretty good motivations if you ask me. And they're pretty similar films in terms of just sitting there for maybe an hour or two, sitting down, enjoying a bunch of action. Sure, but this movie has substance. Godzilla x Kong does not. It just claims that's what it is, uses all the formulas, but doesn't give the movie any heart of its own. For 20 years from now, we won't be talking about this movie at all. We'll instead be talking about a movie that came out 10 years before, Godzilla 2014, because it actually had substance. It actually had heart. And we'll also be talking about Deadpool Wolverine because it had substance. It had heart. It had motivation. It had everything GXK doesn't have. For movies that are very similar, why do you think I love one but hate the other? It's because of execution. GXK just kind of refuses to give us good execution of this. There were so many plots that could have been done so much differently and so much better, yet just thrown to be basically hot garbage. While Deadpool Wolverine, it fully utilized its potential in every way and actually has an end goal to it. Unlike GXK, which just throws you into action and there you go. With these popcorn flicks, at least you have to have heart, which is why I love Deadpool Wolverine, but not GXK. Speaking of which, the characters. In Deadpool Wolverine, the characters, of course, weren't the best, but they actually had some depth to them. They wanted to go back home, go back to the universes that they were taken from, the ones that we saw them in these films in. Maybe not all of them, but most of them. Good motivation. If I was ever taken from my entire universe and put in basically a place I don't want to be at, of course I'd want to go home. Like right, Xavier?
Right.
Good motivations, alright? And a good way to bring back characters we love. Now, with the characters from GXK, fix his infected tooth and see what the readings are all about in Hollow Earth. That's it until they find out about Scar King. And then that's when it actually kicks off. Like, there's a common narrative that I'm bringing up. Most of the stuff happens in the final battle. This Godzilla x Kong is a movie without substance, which is pretty weird considering pretty much every movie in the monsterverse had some substance to it. Maybe not the best, but it had some. Unlike this movie, which had none. So you can't really see where these characters want to go up until the final battle. You can't really see what Godzilla and Kong want to do up until the final battle, because that's where the movie truly starts. Which, sure, it's what we're here for, obviously. But I'm gonna steal this quote from another YouTuber. I'll put it up here. Basically, it's like you're at a fancy restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna give you a meal. You know it's gonna be the best meal of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then they give it to you, but the thing is, they ran out of plates. So they had to serve it on their hands. You have to eat the food out of their dirty, unwashed hands. The meal's still going to be good, but see how it dampens the experience when you have to eat it out of someone's hands instead of an actual plate? Now imagine that in movie terms. This is that, but except when this YouTuber was talking about it, now it's way worse, because at least Godzilla King of Monsters had some substance, even if it wasn't that much. Or the rest of it was poorly executed. It had some. Godzilla X Kong has none. Now, leading up to watching this movie, I thought critics were doing too much. I thought, it's a fun movie. Like, what do you expect? Like, then I went into it completely hating it and realized what they were talking about, because it wasn't fun. That's the last time I'll ever let audience reviews judge whether I'm going to watch a movie or not. Well, reviews in general on Rotten Tomatoes, I'll just have to see for myself or choose not to see for myself. Would have been a much better time to watch Deadpool Wolverine in cinemas instead of my TV, but oh well. Because it was a movie with actual substance, and it executed that perfectly. Everybody had a motivation up until the final battle. Everybody had a purpose up to the final battle. Everybody had a drive up until the final battle. And the final battle only showed all of that, albeit in a comedic way, but they showed it. Godzilla X Kong didn't. And the final battle only lasts for a few minutes. Everyone says there's a bunch of monster action in this movie, but the monsters only have a few minutes. Besides Kong, which is the director's favorite, so apparent by these movies, by giving him almost 40 minutes of screen time in Godzilla 8, when Godzilla is the literal first word in the title. And I feel like it was supposed to be a Kong movie, but they instead decided to add Godzilla for money, which is what the studio wants from you. Money. That's why we're going to keep continuing to make bad films like this. Well, not films. This is a movie. Deadpool Wolverine is a film. This is just a movie. Something you'll just forget, and not even a day. And finally, people are starting to see through all this nonsense and actually see that the monsterverse is going nowhere, and as they continue to make movies like Godzilla X Kong, then it's going to fail. But there are still modern monsterverse meat riders that continue to ride this franchise's bicycle until the wheels fall off. Because there's no way you can still defend it after it does something like this. If it was Marvel that did it, then everyone would be frustrated. Because they have done it before. So why do you think Ant-Man 3 failed, but Deadpool 3 didn't, when it's made by the same studio? Because Ant-Man 3 didn't have substance. Deadpool Wolverine did. But that begs the question, why did GXK get so much praise from fans, but Ant-Man 3 didn't?
Yeah.
That's a topic for another day, but I like to call it out right now. Anyways, the characters in GXK are almost completely non-existent, while the characters in Deadpool Wolverine actually have motivations and the reasoning to do what they do. Now, let's talk about box office. So, Deadpool Wolverine has been out since last month.
Yeah.
It's already on the way to make it's basically already made $1 billion.
Yeah, that's
Right.
crazy.
And it's not even already, which is wild to me. No one expected that. It's overperforming, by the way.
Really?
But now let's pull up GXK. Pull up GXK for me.
Got you.
All right. GXK worldwide made $559 million, which is still good, but
Compared to Deadpool and Wolverine, oh my goodness.
now people are going to make excuses. Well, kids are going to make excuses that Marvel is a bigger property than Godzilla, which is completely idiotic. Which, sure, it's a bigger property, but it's not big enough to just completely just make this movie have half of that movie.
Indeed.
In longer runtime.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense to me. This franchise has been around since 1954. Well, technically since 1933, since we're bringing Kong into it. So there's no sense in using that excuse that it's not as big. That is completely false.
Yeah.
And let's check the reviews. Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Okay, 54 on Rotten Tomatoes. I disagree with this. I think it should be lower. What about you, Xavier?
Yeah.
Absolutely lower. And the audience score 91.
Oh my gosh, that is just a bunch of little kids.
Oh, and man children, obviously.
Yeah.
Which, as I said earlier, we don't care if you like the film and rated it pretty highly. Sure, but the thing is, at least acknowledge it wasn't a good movie. So for those of you who rated it that good, no problem with you. I just wish you could have rated it maybe a tad lower, because now it's pumping up like as if it's
I don't know about a tad. I think a few tads.
Yeah.
100 tads.
And people think we just go into these movies hating. Like, absolutely not. Like, we don't just pay to go buy these tickets just to watch something to hate on it. Like, that makes no sense to me, and that argument is so dumb. Like, I went here to enjoy a movie, didn't enjoy it, came out here completely frustrated and utterly disappointed and indubitably frustrated. Of course, I was just going to come make a video ranting on how I think the monsterverse is having a downfall. But, of course, people are saying I'm just being a hater. I wonder who those people are. Maybe the same people who play Roblox. I don't know. Now, Deadpool Wolverine audience score. Well, overall score 78 by critics. Okay, so you've already got on their good side, because this is pretty high for critics. Not gonna lie, especially for a movie like this. That lets you know the difference in quality between these two movies. And 96 on Rotten Tomatoes, 5 higher than GXK on audience, which I wouldn't really compare those because they're pretty close. Let's review this critic score. Now, the critic scores have been a little inconsistent in the past, but this shows these two movies are basically the same movie if you really think about it. The difference is Deadpool Wolverine has substance, GXK doesn't. That's why. Let's read some of these reviews, shall we?
Okay, this review is coming from Susan G of
on the critics reviews.
Okay,
by the way.
These are the critics reviews. Susan G from SSG Syndicate. She writes, sassy, crowd-pleasing, satirical live-action comic book adventure is basically a bickering bromance between wisecracking Ryan Reynolds' fun-loving, red spandex-clad pansexual anti-hero Deadpool and Hugh Jackson's snarling steel-clawed Wolverine.
Oh, you lost me at the... Okay.
Okay, this is coming from Cody L. of YouTube. He writes, Deadpool and Wolverine is the most laugh-filled fun that I have had in the theater in recent memory. Ryan Reynolds' hijinks mixed with the gravitas of Jackman's Wolverine is a match made in heaven. Story takes a back seat, but they more than make up for it. He gives it a 4.5 out of 5.
As he stated before, sure, the story is pretty good, but it does take a back seat, but at least it has its main characters actually doing something that makes the film watchable. While with GXK, doesn't have good story, has Godzilla staying for 8 minutes and Kong try and do the rest.
Exactly.
Not good balance, if you ask me.
Okay, let's read another one, shall we? Okay, this is coming from Ronak Kotecha from the Times of India. He writes, whether you're a fan or not, Deadpool and Wolverine keeps you engaged with its constant stream of action and humor. 3.5 out of 5.
And the thing with GXK is the humor had a lot of it, but majority of it fell flat, like completely flat, or it just didn't make any sense at all. Like, so there were barely any laughs. So I'm thinking, can this movie just be over with? Like, you guys cannot make a joke.
Yeah.
Now let's move on. Now let's read the Godzilla X Kong critics reviews.
Okay, this one comes from Juniton Ikonen of Toysto.net. Vast parts of the film flash by without anything but guttural noises and explosions in the soundscape. It's like listening to a metal garbage can filled with farm animals topple down the stairs. 1 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's talking about the monster world, which that doesn't make any sense at all, but it's a monster movie. That's the one time I'll defend it, but okay. Okay, this one comes from Grant Watson from The Fiction Machine. I did enjoy the sequel. It fits and starts, but at no point did I particularly respect it. I feel that is telling. And he gave it a 5 out of 10, a 50. Oh my god! And I can understand what he's saying. He means that there was no substance to the movie. There was nothing actually to respect about it because it doesn't even respect itself nor its audience because it has zero substance whatsoever. That's what he means by it. And he did enjoy it. And, those are the fans I really respect that can, be like, hey, the movie wasn't so good, but I still like it. Instead of trying to force the agenda that it's the greatest movie ever. Moving on. All right.
All right, here is Jeff Beck from The Blue Spot. He writes, Godzilla x Kong. The new empire may make small strides in terms of improving its storylines, but sadly it still succumbs to its usual bland, formulaic, and overly familiar climax. 2.5 out of 5.
We were just talking about, not even for the monsterverse, for every franchise, but think you got to branch out at some point, which they've already done, digressing. You know what I mean? Now this one comes from Sarah Vincent from Sarah G. Vincent Views. Okay, that's all.
She says, will Kong and Godzilla fight each other or team up against a new threat? Honestly, by the end of this movie, you won't even care.
Absolutely true. 1 out of 5.
Wow. This is Carson Timar's review from Clappercast.
The actual story and craft are awful, but the action is fun. If you want just dumb fun action, this isn't the worst choice. I swear I have to disagree. The movie really isn't that fun. It's kind of hard to watch. And if you want dumb fun action, watch Deadpool Wolverine because it does it much better. Anyways.
All right, this is coming from Luke Goodsell of ABC News in Australia. For a movie that features Kong and Godzilla going up against a super ape riding a radioactive dinosaur, it's surprisingly dull, devoid of much in the way of wonder, soul, or the genuinely strange.
These are monsters. If monsters exist, do you think you'd just be like, oh, he just jumped on that building and killed hundreds of people? Wow. Let's make a bad joke. And I get what he means by dull, because in the theater, we were almost asleep. I was trying so hard to focus on the movie.
Oh my goodness.
But
you want to know what I did?
What?
So, I looked up on Google how long the movie was, right? And I looked at what time the movie started, and I calculated what time it would end. So I'd know when it would end, and I kept checking the time. Boy, that felt like 10 hours.
I was thinking eventually the movie would get good. I was telling him, hush, let's watch the movie, just for it to not get good.
Yes.
It's just so, and how is it dumb fun if there's no fun in it? What do you have to say to those people what do you have to say to those people that say it's a fun popcorn flick?
Yeah, spoiler alert, it's not.
And I see what he means. Now let's go to the audience reviews of these movies, because this is just complete brain rot. Geo3F, whatever. 3 out of 5 stars, okay? The highlight of this film, it's a movie, but okay, is Godzilla and Kong. The low is the actors and the actress that brought it down to a comedy fest. Well, I wonder why. Maybe it has something to do with the writing, and offer nothing other than commentary to it. Overall, I wish directors and studio executives take off the actors and just focus on Godzilla and Kong as they are the star of the show. Or, get this. Actually write a good script.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm starting to dislike this saga. They should come up with a new formula. Mothra's appearance couldn't save the franchise, but yet you still gave it 3 out of 5 stars. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
They leaned into the buffoonery of it all. Who says buffoonery?
Buffoonery?
My advice is to lean into it. Have a beer, have a laugh, avoid any... Okay, let me just stop that. That's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
But did we like it?
Absolutely not.
And I don't think there's much left to go after this film, considering that these monsters obliterated the entire Earth population, destroyed countless cities. Well, it didn't feel like that. It just felt like that's an everyday thing. the other movies execute so much better. And now here's an actual smart member of the audience that will call out the dumb stuff and actually give it a proper review. Honestly, the girl calling the moth was the most cringy thing. They could have left that entire part out. Also, the size of the monsters are smaller rather than bigger. Zero consistency throughout this movie. Also, literally, they all die if they got hit with Godzilla's beam. Terrible script. Nothing beats the original. Do not recommend. That sums it up for you.
Yep.
Okay. Xavier, I think I want you to read this one.
Okay.
You don't have to read the whole thing, because look at this.
Okay.
This comes from Brad T with a 5-star review of this movie. Oh my god. He's
5 stars.
He's either a kid or a man child.
I'm reading this whole thing.
Okay.
It's very long, by the way. 5 stars. All right.
Wait, what do you think he is? A kid or a man child?
It's definitely. I'm gonna go with man child for this one. All right.
All right.
Let me prepare. Brad T. The absolute GOAT of the monsterverse.
I already have a statement on that. Godzilla 2014 is better. Kong Skull Island's better.
This is insane.
Godzilla Kingdom Mars is better. GVK is better.
Yeah,
so there goes that.
Topping even King of the Monsters for me.
Wait,
we just discussed.
That's what he thought was the best one. I said it was better. I didn't say it was the best. That already sums up.
Oh,
so
okay.
Just keep going.
Everything was just great. First monster action / CGI. Every fight, every scene with Godzilla and Kong and other Titans was so great.
Like, if you could see it.
Godzilla's new design, whether you like the actual design or not, is actually beautiful.
How? He's literally... Okay, he's gay now.
Kong looked a lot older and more mature. What? Anyways, Scar King and Shimo both looked absolute badass, even if Scar King apparently was a weak Titan.
Apparently. He literally was. He got beat by Kong in the first fight.
Also, the fight scene, specifically the Hollow Earth fight, was so cool.
If you could see anything.
Glad they brought the old Showa / Final Wars vibe back.
Why would you be glad that they digressed a grounded franchise into basically cheesy movies?
Story / characters. Okay, so for me, I never had any problem with the human characters in the Monsterverse. I know a lot of people do, but I don't get it. But the story and the characters here were actually really intrigued me.
There's no way. Absolutely. Like, what characters? Like, they could have just put me in the movie and
he might be talking about the deaf girl.
She was a highlight, but the script kind of did her dirty. All right.
Okay. So, it really intrigued me. That's not how you say it. I like the Iwi Hollow Earth story. Also, Kong and Godzilla's story were really well done.
What story?
Maybe Godzilla could have been shown more.
Maybe. He was probably one of the main ones that said...
I mean, a little bit more.
He was probably one of the main ones saying that he had no screen time.
Oh, exactly. It probably wasn't even alive then. I think Mothra was very underdeveloped, but I think the writers know that. She was there just to give people Mothra back, who was loved and already had her own story done.
So basically, fan service with no backing.
No need to expand or make a new story.
Oh wow, that's a really great way to move along the cinematic universe.
I've seen complaints about the CGI and characters.
Terrible.
A complaint that was said that Godzilla floating was badly animated and looked unrealistic. Really, a giant lizard kaiju with atomic breath is realistic enough for you.
Okay, let me stop this right here. Okay, so a billionaire dressed as a bat go into a fictional city to beat criminals every night to a pulp and then come back and act normal. That if that was made realistic, then this can too. And not can, already was multiple times, but this is an excuse I see every time, is if you can't make this grounded. Like, as if they haven't done it in the same exact universe. Like, tell how does this make sense?
I don't even know.
Alright,
anyways. But when he starts floating in zero gravity is too unrealistic.
Well, okay.
Ghidorah exists, right?
Well, so, like, what does that have to do with anything?
Next, the characters. People complain so much about the characters, and I never understood. Like every person who complains that the monsterverse characters are 2D and boring, but then praise the Hizzy era characters. Like, come on. They're even more 2D.
No, they are not.
Except for a very select few. Very select few.
That's more than these few movies here.
And this film gave an actual interesting story.
What story?
So I just don't understand. So overall, this film is great and the best of the MonsterVerse. A true jack of all trades, master of all film. My eyes have got to be deceiving me, right? It's not that funny.
No, I'm just laughing at the review because, okay, I have to go with Man-Chop because there's absolutely no way. Because the greatest MonsterVerse film, it's not even the great. Okay. That just sums that up for you. You know, this audience acting as if this is the greatest movie ever with everything pointing against it. It doesn't make sense at all. You know what? Let's read the Deadpool and Wolverine audience reviews. This comes from Timothy. Okay. I thought the fight scenes were amazing. The humor was great. I don't like that Disney now owns the franchise. I didn't know that prior to watching the movie, but I still love the Deadpool franchise. This might be the last one we see, so let's enjoy it while we still can. Okay, true. And the fight scenes actually were amazing. You could actually see what's going on. It wasn't too bright and the camera all over the place, so you couldn't see where it was. And it was, I was gonna say gory, but there's a difference. GXK was PG-13. This was rated R, so that's unfair. But okay, moving on. Mateen R, 5 stars. Honestly, the best film that I've watched in a long time. The humor, the banter between Deadpool and Wolverine, the cameos, the soundtrack, the list can go on. Sean Levy has done an excellent job, and I'd love to see him narrate many more films to come. Congratulations. Yes, it was one of the best films I've seen in a while as well. Haven't really seen that many in recent times, so it was nice to see this. Unlike GXK, one of the worst I've seen, actually the worst movie I've seen in theaters, and I watched Justice League in 2017 when it came out, so that's saying something. Let's keep scrolling. Great mix of action and comedy. 4 stars, by the way. Hard to understand dialogue at times, but either way, it was still a very terrific film. Alright, true. Mix of action and comedy. GXK has that, but as I said, you can't see the action because it's terribly paced. And comedy, jokes just fell completely flat. Okay. Deadpool Wolverine was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's much better than some of the more recent Marvel movies that haven't come out. Ant-Man 3. Now, let's see. Let's go to the negative reviews. I don't want to be unfair. Well, I'm trying to find some bad reviews that actually go in depth. Not that many of them. There's this genre in comedy where latrionary humor, physical humor, and cringe meets the more extreme. The heart of the audience will cry of laughter or whatever. It's too corny for me, and the movie isn't made for kids either. So, kind of conundrum. This really doesn't make any sense. Okay, for kids, like for young children under 12, I don't recommend them seeing this. Lots of blood, gore, just stuff not for kids. I'm pretty sure we already know not to take our kids to R-rated movies, but that's just me, I guess. Cringe, I didn't really see too much cringe in the movie. Didn't point out a specific scene or anything, just said it was cringe overall, which doesn't really make any sense to me. Physical humor, I get, like, whenever, the claws went up his balls. I get what he means by that. But I don't really get how that goes against the film, but whatever. Bad humor. Sure, not all of it landed, but most of it did. Unlike with GXK, literally none of it landed. But it kind of feels like they would agree that GXK wasn't that good either. But I can see where the arguments are coming from. But for this movie, I can actually come up with an argument to go against it. Not all of it, but most of it. Um, can't really find any more in-depth bad reviews. I'm not just gonna read some that just said it's bad. It's kind of hard to find bad reviews already. Okay, I think that's it. Well, all right. That's as much as I can find. It says a lot. They aren't even going in depth on why the movie is bad. There was only like one review I saw that went in depth on how bad it was. While with GXK, there were plenty of them. It's just okay. I don't really want to spend too much time on this, but let's just talk about the good things about the GXK. I like the part where I know you heard this a million times before. Kong beat the other monkeys with the baby monkey. Can't even be bothered to remember their name, but I remember that part. And but just because that doesn't mean it's a good movie. Like these, I've seen lots of people say Kong beat other monkeys with a child like nunchuck, so it's an automatic 10. Like just no, just no. They keep trying to make these corny jokes about that. Like no, that doesn't make it automatic 10. One semi-funny scene doesn't redeem this movie for all of its bad qualities. And besides that, I don't really know too much of anything good to be honest. Besides that one scene where Kong was in the pit with the other Kongs and before he fought Scar King and the way they were interacting and stuff, I feel like they could pull off a movie with more monsters in it and less humans, but you still got to make the humans good and actually make the monster scenes watchable instead of just making it hard to watch by terrible pacing. But okay. That's about all I can list off of the good things. The good things about Deadpool Wolverine. Very funny, had me laughing out loud many times, something GXK couldn't do. And I was in an environment with a lot of people laughing. So usually that enhances, but it couldn't even make me crack out a giggle besides when the kid was being used as nunchucks. Don't want to bring that up too much because that's what all these Brain Dead audience members bring up to try to say this movie is one of the greatest of all time. The fight scenes were actually watchable, as I've stated before. You could see what was going on. It was genuinely entertaining to watch instead of just seeing from one angle, then it switching to a whole another angle about 5 times in a second, and having so much color and everything everywhere all at once going all around it in the background, and the colors being everywhere so you can barely see what's going on. Yeah, the fights were easily watchable. The characters were pretty good. Maybe not the best, but they were pretty good. And the chemistry between the main characters was terrific. The set pieces were terrific. The villains were terrific. Maybe not the best villains we've ever seen, but they were still pretty terrific. GXK has basically none of that. I can list off a lot of good things about Deadpool and Wolverine all day, and I know what these fans will say. They'll say, "Why are you comparing these two movies?" Because, well, if you think about it, they are the same. They're technically the same movie. I'm not going to say they are exactly the same movie, but they are technically the same movie for reasons I've listed off before. Fun popcorn flick with two very popular characters going against two world-ending threats for one reason or another, different reasons. The reasoning was terrible. The villains were terrible. Characters terrible. Everything around it was terrible. GXK. While with Deadpool and Wolverine, almost everything around it was good, and it actually had substance. And there was a few bad things about Deadpool and Wolverine, like plot holes and unnecessary scenes, all that stuff. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it was good. But if I listed off the bad stuff about GXK, I'm gonna be here all day. And the fans, no matter how many times you call them out and try to make them self-aware of how they're acting, they're still gonna say the same thing over and over and over again. You have to have an argument in the comments spread throughout months because they refuse to listen and want to jump straight. They just want to cut straight to the chase. As I said, the actual GXK fans who can accept that it's a bad movie and can respect people who don't think it was good, they're not usually like, they're like, yeah, I like the movie. Wasn't that good overall, but I love the movie personally. I figure that's what most of them are going to be like, but I guess not. That's the Godzilla community for you, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
It's nothing new to me at this point, but anyways.
Yeah. In
conclusion, this video's wrapping up, obviously, or else I wouldn't have said in conclusion. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening if you've listened this long, because most of the GXK fan kids have already clicked off. What do you have to say, Xavier?
GXK sucked.
Valid.
Yeah.
Alright. Thanks for watching. I'll upload a video soon. How do these YouTubers usually do outros?
I think they say bye, guys.
Oh yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Mr.
Like.